Having some technical difficulties with the technology. Whew. Oh, but it is a beautiful, beautiful morning, and I want to show you something very magical that I am so very, very excited to share with you today. It feels like I feel this warm, fuzzy feeling to be able to share this with you. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but that's a part of the magic, I suppose. Would you like to see the surprise? Okay. I just need a second to set this up. Woo. Okay. Here we go. Hello. Hello. Good morning. Hello. Hello. Good morning. Hello. Ooh, 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 Good morning. Good morning. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Good morning. How cool to wake up and have this glorious being right here. Wow. There's something about waking up with goats that I guess makes me feel just a little bit less lonely in this world. I would like to thank these incredible goats for sharing these moments, for tolerating my presence, and I hope that it's been nourishing for them. But I'm not entirely sure. I feel like we have some sort of a connection, but it's not as strong as I would have liked. I've never known a goat before, but I don't think that they hate me. I think that they want to be around each other sometimes, but then sometimes I think they just want some space. So maybe I will give you some space and head back to the land beyond the fence, which makes me think about fences and different restrictions that are sometimes real, sometimes physical, sometimes emotional, sometimes it's hard to talk about our experience of the restrictions that maybe aren't written down, but still have an intense impact on our everyday choices. For example, I brought some articles of clothing with me, and some of them are coded for certain, I was going to say types of people, but that sounds weird coming off of my tongue. Really what I was intending to say was for people of different genders, but the way that people of different genders get treated in our society, it does feel like there are these ideas about different types of people when really we're all just people. And I don't think that understanding one second, just gotta close this gate. That is not an easy thing to do while talking. Okay, let me see if I can figure out a way to make this. Ooh. Okay. I'm hoping to have some sun. Is there sun? Yes. There is sun. How cool. Okay. This is the morning sun. This is the morning sun. I brought some articles of clothing. I could show them to you. I was thinking about changing my clothes. I'm dressed basically in gray. Completely gray. It wasn't intentional, but I just woke up this way. And The way that so many of us were raised was to be a certain type of person. And I think for most of us, our parents had the best intentions and also did not have the awareness or the skills to provide us with an experience of reality where we could really be who we are. And I tried so hard for so many years to be who everybody else wanted me to be. And even after coming out, I was sent to the doctor, and I basically went back in the closet, and she suggested it was just a phase. And I didn't want to be different. I wanted to be normal. And I remember being so almost obsessed with being normal that I think it made other people uncomfortable. And I think it was really a reflection of how much pressure I was experiencing to be a certain type of person that wasn't actually a reflection of me, but was more a reflection of the society that I come from and the expectations and assumptions of how you're supposed to be, of how you're supposed to live, of how you're supposed to work, of how you're supposed to love, how you're supposed to dress, how you're supposed to fill in the blank however you want. But I seem to have broken and continue to break so many of those, despite probably, if I was to take off this hat, I would seem perhaps I was gonna say generic, but I don't wanna I look like, I guess, a young-ish white man, and I suppose I am ish. I'm not like, I am a white man, and I've had more than my fair share of human suffering, and I think you've also had more than your fair share. Not that there's any fair share, actually. Like that okay, I take back what I said, because I don't think that suffering needs to be a part of our lives. I don't think that it should be. And in our own ways, I do think that we're all suffering, and my suffering is probably very different, or at least somewhat different than your suffering. And I don't want to have some sort of a suffering competition. What I want to do is share my access to goats with you, and share my practices of healing from pain and betrayal, and also to say that I'm not fully healed, that not this night, but the night before, I had a really confusing dream where my former best friend, who's now somebody that I don't feel safe even receiving like an email from, I guess I'm still healing. And I don't think that we talk about that, especially men talk about feeling heartbroken and vulnerable and unsafe. And my best friend was a woman, and I've had other experiences with women and men and non-binary people where I haven't felt safe. And I still struggle to feel safe. But I think when people look at me, maybe they don't think that, but I think you can probably sense that I have anxiety and that impacts my experience of reality because of how I present myself, or maybe I cover it up. I can't tell sometimes. It's been a long time since I've been close to somebody in a deep emotional type of way, and I crave that sort of connection, but it just, I think, is really difficult to find in the modern dating scene, where maybe if I was open to more casual connections, that could turn into something else, but that's just not a safe way for me to share myself. I need to find that safety and trust before connecting with somebody. And yeah, it's been challenging for so many of us. What was the point? I don't know. What is the point? I think the point is to love, and that I'm doing my best to love as somebody who is single by the traditional understanding of, well, I'm not really traditional in how I understand love and relationships. I am polyamorous, and I want to find a love that is abundant. I want to find a love that is not about restriction, not about saying, oh, you can only love one person, or you can only love two people, or you can only love three people. I actually think that it is possible to love 10 people. And you could make the comparison to having 10 goats. And like, I would never fuck a goat, and I think that that's a problem. Don't fuck goats. But like, as like some sort of a experience of having a relationship with another being that is emotional, that is perhaps spiritual, where there's presence and care, I think that that's possible. And like, people have, okay, like people have pets, like dogs, cats. You could have 10 cats, you could have 10 dogs. I wouldn't recommend it. It's not for everybody, but if somebody really wants to commit their life to loving dogs, like not romantically or sexually, obviously, but to sharing their home and their life and their moments of magic, of like, say, watercolors or I don't know, going for walks, going for a swim. I don't know what you do with a dog, but people who love their dogs, they it's possible to not just love one dog, but to have many. And people have, like, we each get to choose what we do with our lives. And what I want to choose to do is to love. And it's been difficult to not have a serious, loving relationship for a long time. And I really had hoped to find that on this journey. And it's becoming more and more clear to me that that isn't happening at this point in my journey. And that despite not having romantic love within the typical approach to polyamorous relating, it is still possible to practice love and to give myself the love that I had hoped to find outside of myself. And yeah, I want to choose love. I could sit here and share stories about my experiences of neglect, and I don't want to do that. I've done that too many times. I'm actually a bit self-conscious about how many hours, days, weeks, months, years I've spent doing that, and I'm not proud of that, but I think that I also don't want to punish myself for having an abundance of heartbreak and needing to process it in ways that are uncomfortable and painful. I think in some ways I was creating some sort of a spiral of suffering by going through these stories, and I've just been trying to do my best to heal, and I'm not perfect, but I do believe that healing is happening and transformation is happening. I have changed. And I think it's through trying to choose love instead of to choose that negative spiral. And it's not an easy choice. Well, is it? I think that we develop these patterns, and so I could spend all day feeling so upset about the snowshoes that my partner at the time gave me in this extremely elaborate experience where I was blindfolded in a big box store, walking through the store with a blindfold on, and then it was this big, like, these are for you. These snowshoes are for you. And then, they're not for me after we broke up. That's, not my snowshoes. Which I have strong feelings about. And I don't even like to snowshoe, really. But it's the principle of the situation. Of, like, if you're going to blindfold somebody, in the car as well. But, like, it was probably at least 15 minutes. And I'm walking and going through doors with a blindfold on, very vulnerable, like physically and emotionally. That's not something that I would have chosen to do, but it was what my partner, I guess, wanted to do for this gift that we never even ended up using. And I'm guessing that it's been used now by somebody else, which is just so frustrating. I think because this person was supposedly my daddy, but I feel like I've had some extremely disappointing daddy experiences in my life, and snowshoe daddy is, like, I think well-meaning and also made some really big promises that were not kept. But I don't want to spend this time going through these stories. But I do have this pattern of going down that negative spiral. So I want to actually stop that. And I do wish the best for Snowshoe Daddy. Even though I do feel like my snowshoes have been stolen after being gifted to me, which is a really strange thing to do. But I guess people do some strange and disappointing things when there's love and sex involved sometimes. So, yeah, I think I need to just accept that my snowshoes are not my snowshoes. They're somebody else's. And life goes on. Really, snowshoes are not a big deal, but it's more about what they represent. And the fact that there was that, like, the blindfold in particular feels like I really, and there was more context to it, but I don't need to get into that right now. But it just feels unfair. And yeah. Anyways, I don't want to just share these stories. Although, like, I think there is a time and a place for these stories. What I want to do is have fun. And you don't need to have snowshoes to have fun. You don't need to have a partner to have fun. You don't need to have fill in the blank. Like, I think it can be perhaps easier to access certain feelings and experiences depending on our context. And I don't think that we all have the same access to fun. And also, sometimes something really small like playing music or even just standing up or just moving, even if, like, you can't stand up, to just do some sort of a gentle movement of the head or the shoulders can be a way to feel even like 1% better. I carry so much tension in my back and my neck and my shoulders. This feels really good, and I don't think I would describe this as particularly fun, but as adults, I think we tend to forget to move our bodies in ways that feel aligned and in ways that feel joyful or pleasurable, and just kind of releasing some of that tension from my shoulders and my back feels kind of magical. And I imagine I'm not the only one that has back pain and tension that we might just kind of experience as normal because our everyday has become painful, and we might not be really connected to the ways that we can nourish ourselves. And that's one of the things that I want to prioritize, is how can we nourish ourselves and make our days even like 1% better. And what's really exciting about this math, I get excited about math. I do like numbers. I'm not gonna make this too mathy, but if every day we made our day 1% better for an entire year, and say you started at, say, a 1 level of, say, a 1 level of happiness, or like a unit, 1 unit. If your happiness level was 1 unit, at the end of a year, with 1% increases each day, at the end of the year, you end up with, guess how many units? I don't even want to say, but it's kind of a ridiculous amount. And basically what the math does is that little changes day by day, it's hard to see the difference within a few days or even within a few weeks, but over a long period of time, those little things that we do actually add up to a really big change if we are consistently showing up and making very small changes. They do make a big impact in the long run, which is, I think, exciting. Like playing some music or doing some stretches or some maybe gentle movement, like arm circles. Oh, when was the last time that you did arm circles? And obviously, if anything is painful, I would not suggest that you do it. But if something feels nourishing, that might be something to explore. So yeah, that is my question for you, is what would you find nourishing? What do you want? And what can you give yourself that would make your day 1% better? And I don't think I can answer that for you. I have ideas and suggestions, and what I do to make my day better I could share with you. But I also think it's important for you to tune into yourself and really pay attention to what feels nourishing for you, because that might be phenomenally different than what's nourishing for me. And yeah, we each get to choose what we do, how we live, how we love, and I don't think we need to depend on anybody else to have love in our lives and to give ourselves the love that we've been yearning for.